Hello and welcome to another episode of Unstuck with Hypnopunk Transformation with Edge. Today's episode is going to be entitled How to Fast. All the things you need to know to fast successfully, to lose unwanted weight, to feel amazing, to regulate your metabolism and release more growth hormone and all that good stuff. But before we get into that, I would like to thank any and all of you that have left comments, liked, reviewed, shared my podcast on whatever format you've done that, whether that be iTunes, Google Play or YouTube. It makes me happy when you do that, and I smile from the inside. And the reason I do that is because I put this podcast out absolutely for free, and I will continue to do that as long as I know you're enjoying it. And the only way I know you're enjoying it is if you like them, you share them, you tell people about it, and you drop me emails. And also, if you do leave 5-star reviews on iTunes or whatever format you listen to, take a screenshot of it, send it to me at mail, M-A-I-L, at LUKENOSIS, LUKENOSIS.com, and we will book a free complimentary 30-minute unstuck session. If you're in Ontario, it'll be over telephone. If you're the rest of the world or outside of Ontario, it will be via Skype. This is not a hypnosis session. This is not a therapy session, but it's 30 minutes of my time, and I don't have a lot of it, to help you brainstorm some ideas to become unstuck in that area, to get on to the next area of your life, to have more freedom and happiness. That being said, back on with the show. Fasting. So fasting, why on earth would you want to fast in your life? I like food, I don't want to starve, I've got money, I have a job so I can eat, so I don't have to fast, I hear some of you say. And I used to share a lot of those same concepts, to be honest with you, but I've played around with fasting now for about 10 years. Some of the benefits of fasting are obviously weight loss, correcting many kind of different chronic diseases and illnesses in the body. You can research this on your own, and also having clarity of mind, and some people do use it as a spiritual practice. I don't necessarily do that, but some people do. Things like Ramadan, which is a form of fasting. So it has many benefits out there. I've played around with many benefits of fasting. My current record is I've gone 4 days, which is 96 hours with only water, no other gimmicks, and I'm going to end up dropping about 12 or 14 pounds in that time. And to be honest, for the first couple of days I was training, still living my life as per normal, if Hypnopunk does have a normal life. And then when the fourth day come, I'm like, I've had enough of this now, it's time to reintroduce food in. And it was a couple of things for me to show self-mastery, because back in evolution, in our caveman and cavewoman times, the way we'd naturally eat back then, the studies have shown us, is oftentimes we'd feast for a period of time, whether we killed a lion, a tiger or a bear or a disco. But there'd be periods, perhaps days, weeks, even months, where there was no food, perhaps in wintertime, where animals had hibernated and it was harder for us to eat, that our body would essentially eat away at the fat, then muscle. Very late in that process. Fat would always be eaten first. And if you look at how our physiques have changed since those times, there wasn't a lot of fat cavemen and cave women walking around with type 2 diabetes. Now, they might have died early because they got attacked by a bear that they were trying to kill so they could eat, but they looked pretty fucking good doing it. An interesting thing about fasting is this also. A lot of people think, well, if I'm training and want to build muscle, when I fast, aren't I going to eat away all of my muscle? Not at all. Your body's natural process is to fast, to eat away at fat, because that's its most ready source. But before that, it will go through the carbohydrate stores that are inside your body. Then it will go through fat. And when it's eliminated all the carbs in your body and all of the fat in your body, then it will go after muscle. An interesting thing about this, and we've all got way too much fat that we could literally go months, even if we're in good shape, without attacking muscle. And a way to ensure that you do not eat into your muscle is when you're fasting is do some kind of resistance training, whether that be calisthenics, bodyweight exercises, or doing some kind of weight training at the gym, will ensure that your muscles do not dissipate. Now, if you fast and you just don't train with muscle, they will naturally shrink as if you didn't train, if you train a little bit, then you never trained again, your muscles will shrink. But even if you're fasting, if you are doing some resistance training, your muscles will be spared. You'll go through your carbohydrate stores, which will usually be a couple of days, and then after that, you will go into your fat stores. And like I said, most of us, even if we're in great shape, have enough fat stores to go a couple of months without even touching muscle. Now, I need to make a disclaimer here. I'm obviously not a medical doctor, and I'm not saying that you should fast. I'm just saying you should perhaps investigate it and make an informed decision for yourself if it's the right thing to do. And certainly a couple of resources I'd recommend to you are Fasting and Eating for Health by Joel Fuhrman, MD, which is Fuhrman, and The Complete Guide to Fasting by Jason Fang, MD, Fung. And there's many studies in both these books that I'll let you do your own due diligence and research in. Stop being lazy. Don't take my word for it. Read this stuff up for yourself. Just take this as a foot in the door to open up your mind, to be inspired to look into this. But oftentimes, when we fast, what happens is a lot of people now are suffering from Syndrome X, or metabolic disorder. And basically what that is they oversecrete insulin too much. They create too much insulin in their body, and if your body's got too much insulin, it gets stored as fat. So you could be training your heart out, but if your body creates too much insulin, even if you're eating what you consider to be healthy, you will gain weight. One way to quickly down-regulate your insulin responses to things, to stop having them jack up, and the only way that's been proven time and time again over hundreds, thousands, millions of years, is by fasting. Because every time you eat, even if it's fruit, even if it's salads, even if it's low carb, even if it's what you consider to be healthy food, there is a spike in your insulin, and depending on how insulin dependent you are, or dependent on how big that spike is, and the bigger the spike is, the more insulin's secreted from your body, and the more inclined it is to crash and for you to overeat, even if it's healthy food. The only time your insulin doesn't spike is when you don't eat. When you fast, whether that be, and we're going to go through different protocols, 16 hours, 24 hours, 3 days, 5 days, your insulin doesn't spike, which means you're not creating any of it in your body, which means you can't be storing any fat. It actually starts to adjust your metabolism, that even if you're metabolically resistant to other diets, it can basically work as a hard reset to your body. An interesting thing that I've encountered, and many people speak of this, and those two books that I quoted earlier talk about this, and various forums, is we're so used to eating the 3 to 5 to 6 meals a day that are just dogma. By the way, that 3 meals a day was just created by someone, or the bodybuilding regime of 6 meals a day was just created by someone. There's not really any science behind saying eating 3 times or eating 6 times a day makes you any leaner, any more muscular, have a faster metabolism. It's just hope law by a lot of supplements out there to make you buy more of their supplements, so you eat a certain way. Free full meals, free supplements, so you go through their supplements. There's a lot of bullshit basically when you look through this to sell you more product. The only thing that's been proven 100% of the time, all of the time, to make you lose weight is one thing: don't eat. Because when you're not eating, your insulin levels aren't going up, there's no calories being put inside your body, you will lose weight. Now, whether that's just fat, whether that's just water, muscle, that's another discussion to perhaps have later, but you will lose weight. It's the only thing that's been proven time and time again. If you go long enough without eating, you will lose weight, you will lose fat. The current record is over 365 days. I do not have the gentleman's name, but you know what? I'm going to stop this podcast right now, and I'm going to find the gentleman with the world record for fasting. I'll be right back. Yes, Google is my friend, ladies and gentlemen. A study from 1973 for a 27-year-old male who fasted for 382 days under the supervision of researchers from Scotland University. This is the longest fast ever been recorded. This patient weighed in at 456 pounds, which is 207 kilograms, and weighed out 180 pounds, 82 pounds. So he lost 265 pounds or 127 kilos during his fasts. 5 years after the fast ended, the patient's weight had been consistently around the value of 196 pounds and had no ill symptoms during or after the fast. Throughout the entire 382 days, which is over a year, patient AB consumed water, and potassium. He actually had some potassium, okay, and he had urine and blood collections that were taken throughout the process of fasting, and fecal evacuations were infrequent in the latter period of fasting, as to be expected, as the time between stools was averaging, about 2 to 3 days, as the researchers claim. A result, blood glucose decreased progressively in the first 4 months, but it remained in 30 mg /100 ml onwards. However, by the end of the fasting, the researchers had frequently seen values below 200 mg /100 ml. The researchers say that despite the hypoglycemia, the patient remained symptom-free, felt well, walked around normally, and they have his general average monthly glucose levels there. So that's also his cholesterol, which was consistent at 230 mg /100 ml, and it decreased to and it increased at 370 mg to /100 ml during the refeeding period. But basically, a lot of stuff had changed, and the guy clearly didn't die. AB lost, again, 276 pounds during his 382 days of fasting. That's an average of 0.72 pounds per day, which is mostly attributed to the breakdown of fat tissue. And I think we can achieve significantly higher levels of fat oxidation while being keto adapted without having to reach out for such extreme measures. So are we saying that you have to do that? No, but we're saying that a guy had a healthy life. Yeah, he was a big guy, but he went 382 days without fasting with no adverse reactions. And there have been other studies with people not potentially as long, but of the positive effects of fasting. Now, obviously, always consult your doctor. If you suffer from very, very hypoglycemia or high blood pressure, then certainly, or diabetes, certainly check in with your doctor before you do that. I'm not saying that you should, but given all is well and above board, and you've checked in with that, then it might be a new tool to play with. We also know that when you fast, the hunger hormone, and I'm going to brutally destroy this now, I'll spell it for you. The hunger hormone, which is GHRELIN, ghrelin, actually it's secreted for the first couple of days, but then what fasters notice, myself included, is when you realize that most of your eating is pattern based, i.e. you've been eating the 3 meals, the 6 meals for such a long time, it's just a pattern, a dogma that you've been of going through. Once you go through a day or so of that pattern just goes, and you go into kind of like a little bit of anxiety when you don't know when you're going to eat again, you actually are not hungry. I know it sounds weird, and me going from my record on 4 days is honestly, in those 4 days, I was probably hungry a grand total of about 2 or 3 times in 4 days. And what I mean by that is not head hungry, oh, I crave having this now. I mean, my tummy telling me for about 5 minutes, Luke, you need to eat right now. But the rest of the time, I was not hungry. Yeah, there was mental games that was going on inside my head of patterns that, shouldn't I have breakfast because I've done it for 38 years? Shouldn't I have dinner because I've had it for this amount of time? It was just breaking those patterns or paradigms down made me realize I actually wasn't. In those 4 days, I was hungry about a grand total of about 3 times, and it lasted anywhere from about 5 to 10 minutes before it disappeared, because hunger is much like an emotional state. If you try and hang on to happiness, one thing's for sure, you're going to lose it. If you try and hang on to sadness, one thing's for sure, it will change into another emotion. The same as hunger, it comes in waves, it comes, it goes. Now, some very, very popular ways of playing around with fasting now are the 16-8 principle, where you eat for 8 hours, for an 8-hour window at least, and you fast for 16 hours. This can be as simple as having your last meal at 8 o'clock at night and not having your next meal until 12 noon the next day. So essentially 8 hours of that's being taken up by sleep, and the other 8 hours is just 4 hours on the front of that 8 hours and 4 hours on the back of it. So it's very, very durable, and people are having great success. They call it IE, intermittent fasting. Another one for people that want to challenge yourself a little bit more is the 24 protocol, where you'll fast, i.e. you will not eat anything, but you will be able to drink water or herbal teas with no calories for 4 hours of the day, and you can eat in that time. But for the 20 hours you're only drinking water out of it and herbal teas. A lot of people swear by that. Some people swear by having each week eating a normal meal, and for want of a better word, like say 6 meals a day. However, one day a week they'll have 24 hours where they will just not eat anything. They'll drink water, they'll stay well hydrated, but they will not eat anything, and they will swear by this. Some people have the 3-day water fast, which I kind of talked a little bit earlier on, but I took it one step further, where you go 3 days without eating anything, just drinking water and having no calories, which can be a really good reboot to your system, which is perhaps a good way. I do a couple of these each year in the beginning of the year, mid-year, and at the end of the year, and yes, I lose a lot of weight, usually about 10 to 11 pounds, but mostly it's water. But what it's doing is cleaning my system, clearing my mind, and helping to balance insulin receptors inside my body, and I've noticed great results with all of those. One of my heroes, David Blaine, did a stunt, for want of a better word, or that feels like I'm being a bit demeaning, I don't mean to be, where he came to England to Tower Bridge, and for 44 days and 44 nights he only drank water. And people were imagining and had seen David Blaine doing street magic and all these weird and wonderful things, and they kind of turned against him a little bit like this, because watching someone in a perspex box for 44 days above Tower Bridge where he doesn't really do anything is quite boring. But when you realise the metaphor behind it was actually you are far more capable of going further and pushing yourself than you ever imagined, then you realise the beauty in this suffering that can happen. And it's a good form of suffering, going back to an earlier podcast on suffering and stoicism, which I believe was a podcast around podcast 13-14. David Blaine had adapted this from The Hunger Artist, which was a Kafka book in the early turn of the 19th century, which was a man to impress, to entertain the king. He just stopped eating, and the whole book is based upon him not eating and him being a hunger artist, which is what David Blaine adapted to do a real life version of that, if you will, not a fictionized version of it. But there are many, many, many benefits out there. There are many studies out there where people have been able to cure. Actually, I'm not allowed to say the word cure. If you're a professional who works with people, you're not allowed to say the word cure. These are not my terms. These are terms of research papers that I've read that claimed that people that had type 2 diabetes, I believe that is non-insulin dependent, that people who did fast under the supervision of a doctor and medical team were able to reverse the symptoms of diabetes and no longer be categorized as type 2 diabetics. There you go. And they've also done studies with people with various malignant tumours inside, cancerous tumours fasting, and amazing things happening to those tumours, i.e. them shrinking. But those are research studies you can do for yourself online. Do your due diligence, stop being lazy. But the power is, you don't have to have a crazy workout regime. You don't have to be on a miracle supplement, a miracle diet. You don't have to give Weight Watchers your money or Dr. Bernstein and have shots of vitamins from my American friends shot inside your body. Sometimes by going back to evolutionary biology, by eating nothing, by allowing the body to go back into this process, can correct a lot of ills, can reset your metabolism, can help you get load of a shitload, pun intended, of weight, to give you more mental clarity and also more inner strength that, wow, if I can go 4 days without eating, what else can I do in my life? If you would like a report that I put together on the 5 best ways to fast, then shoot me over an email at mail at LUKEnosis LUKENOSIS.com and ask for the 5 best ways to fast, and I will shoot you over that special report. Hopefully you've got something from today's podcast on fasting and why it's Very, very powerful. And I will leave the links of my 3-day water fast underneath this, some videos I made on YouTube. Again, watch them. Self-govern yourself. I'm not saying you should or you have to do this. You are self-governing yourself. If you do choose to fast, always consult a medical professional. But the results on fasting and how its effect on health are immense and are amazing. I've been Luke Michael Howard, aka the Hypnopunk. This has been another episode of Unstuck, Transformation with Edge. Always believe.